I'm with Ibrahim Mogra, member of the Muslim Council of Britain, speaking to me at his home in Leicester. Ibrahim, what do you think the impact of the coronavirus is having, particularly on Muslim practice and belief?
It's having a massive impact. Clearly, it has disrupted the normal routine, things that we are accustomed to, used to from childhood. We are taught a particular pattern, particular times, methods, getting to the masjid, to the mosque and back. And all those things are now disrupted. There are also issues around who is going to go to the mosque, who's not going to go to the mosque. In many of our South Asian communities, particularly Indian communities, my own community, most of our mosques do not allow women to attend the mosque. So they'd be praying at home by themselves in any case, so they're quite accustomed to it. And the men would and the boys would go to the mosque. Now we're all together, praying together at home. So it's been an amazing impact at the same time as a very disruptive one.
Do you think, in terms of bringing religion into the home, particularly for the men, as you say, who tend to be the ones who goes to the mosque more than women, is it recalibrating that relationship, bringing the faith into the domestic space?
I think so. I think by and large, what would happen is, as the male members of the family go off to the mosque, the women would just pray by themselves. By the time we return home, they've done their prayers and they're back to whatever it is that they have to do. And so we don't share any spiritual time, so to speak, together as one single unit, a family unit. Whereas now, everyone is together. Mom and, in our case, our sons, all of us are together. In many families, there'll be daughters, there may be grandma, an elder son's daughter, a wife, which is a daughter-in-law. So there'll be a much larger circle of women folk joining the men folk in the same prayer, in the same space at the same time. And I think in some ways, I see this as perhaps one of the small blessings we can see in this horrendous situation that has taken so many lives, that we are able to finally do something. Certainly for my community, my Indian background communities, most of us would not have opportunities to spend a spiritual space and time with our women folk as we're doing now.
Before we move on to Ramadan, I want to take this one step further and ask whether you think that will continue after we return to that normality, when the mosque doors are open, like the church doors and the synagogue doors and the Gurdwara doors. Do you think there will be a consequence in terms of women participation, or are we going to return to type?
So that's fascinating, because with all things new, at some point the novelty does wear out. So I guess all the online enthusiasm that we have currently in listening to sermons, listening to prayers, recitations of the Quran, which has increased in a big way and will continue to do so throughout the month of Ramadan, actually, I can see that kind of as things return to normal, this will decline. Although Muslims, like other faith communities, have for years been accessing online material. Some great Imams and scholars have been preaching, including women scholars. So it's been fantastic. But I think as far as the ritual worship aspect goes, I don't believe that the men will continue to pray at home after the restrictions have been lifted, because the hadith traditions and the fiqh, the jurisprudence, requires men to join a congregation in a mosque, and women who are able to join a congregation in a mosque also are encouraged to do so. So I don't believe that this will become a continuing practice. At some point it will cease to function in the way that we're currently praying.
Okay, let's move on now to the festival of Ramadan, the most important festival in the Muslim calendar. Now, like Jews who have celebrated Passover and Christians who have celebrated Easter. It's been a unique experience, and that's going to be the same for you. So tell me about how Ramadan is going to work, or is working, for the Muslim community since you can't go to mosque.
So there are several dimensions to how Ramadan can be understood and practiced. First and foremost is the fasting bit. Thankfully, that is not restricted by geography. You don't have to be in a mosque to be fasting. So that's straightforward. Charity plays a major part in the lives of Muslims, but in Ramadan more so. And for that, you don't have to be limited by geography. You can now make your donations online, which is a great blessing. Then there's the recitation of the Quran, which we can do within our homes. You don't have to be in a mosque to do that. But I think the most painful part will be the night prayers called the Taraweeh prayers. These are the late night prayers in which the Quran is recited by those who have memorized the Quran from memory, leading the prayers to hundreds of people in the congregation. And that sadly will not happen this year. And people are really going to miss that. It's something that we look forward to all year long. People who do not frequent the mosques ordinarily in Ramadan do much more, and particularly the night prayers, they make a real effort to at least listen to the Quran in its entirety being recited over 30 nights. And that is going to be a major, major difference this year.
Have you noticed a change in understanding of what community is? A number of the participants on the COVID-19 Chronicles have talked about new understandings of community, the irony of being isolated but yet connected. And the Muslim community in this country, the largest non-Christian community, is very disparate. It's very connected with different parts of the country. I'm just wondering whether this isolation actually brings you closer together with other Muslims, perhaps overseas as well, or whether you do feel more lonely.
We have this idea of the world's Muslims being the Ummah, meaning one community of believers in Islam. And the way the faith has been structured from its inception is designed in a way that whether you are in physical contact or you are thousands of miles apart, you do feel that connection, you do feel that oneness, that you are all one together. So if we look at the 5 daily prayers, many of our scholars say that when the call to prayer starts off in the Fiji Islands and finishes off in the far west coast of America, for example, almost every hour, or at least every half an hour, even every minute, there is a call to prayer being made somewhere on this planet. And that's what connects us as an ummah. If you look at the fast, we will all begin the fast at dawn and end the fast when the sun sets. At that moment, you feel that connectedness, that we may be all by ourselves now in our family home, not in the mosque with communal iftar and breaking of the fast and other places. So that idea of belonging to the ummah, I think will still remain very much alive. And I think now it is felt even more powerfully because it is a distant belonging to the ummah, unlike being with everyone at the mosque in a shared physical space.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that, Ibrahim. You're a friend, so I can do that. But with 1.7 billion adherents, which I think is about the size of the Muslim population around the world, the concept of the Ummah is theoretical. There are so many divisions, not just within Islam, of course, but within all faith communities. So, there's a certain amount where is that not slightly overdone?
Well, there are many of us who do not limit and restrict the ummah notion to just Muslims. I would regard you as part of the ummah, as a Jew, a Christian, an atheist. Any human being who lives with us in these times is part of the ummah, meaning they have come after the blessed messenger Muhammad, peace be upon him. So we are all part of the ummah in any case. What also helps us is that when we talk about ummah, that gives us the common denominator, despite our differences in terms of schools of law, in terms of the different sects, if you would like. Despite all those, we still feel able to come together as an ummah when push comes to shove. Internally, yes, we are very, very divided. We squabble about every little thing, and it saddens me. And perhaps I also need to better myself and be more willing to agree to disagree with Muslims who see things differently from my point of view. But I think it's healthy as long as we're respectable and with due etiquette. We have volumes written on the etiquette of difference between scholarship. We have all the different schools of law today, which are vibrant in Islam. They're all a result of differences of opinion of the jurists when they formulated the law. So yes, you're right. We have our two main traditions, the Sunni tradition and the Shia tradition, absolutely apart. But we still, when it comes to it, we will still feel that we are part of the Ummah, but particularly when it comes to Ramadan, fasting and the breaking of the fast.
So we're bringing this discussion to a close. What's the one thing you'd like people to have learned from the Muslim tradition that will help them manage to live through COVID-19?
The first thing that comes to mind is just keep calm and keep going, which perhaps may not sound very Islamic, but the point here, I think, is to place your trust in God, but also to use all the different abilities that God has given us in order to keep ourselves safe and others safe while we carry out our duties to God, while we carry out our normal day-to-day things, while carrying out our work, etc. Life does not stop with the onset of any adversity. The Quran gives us very comforting words. It tells us, and this is a very special verse in which God repeats the same idea twice in the same verse. It says, and after hardship, there is ease. Scholars interpret it to say, and with hardship, there is ease. So after we have gone through this very, very painful and difficult time, inshallah, with God's will, there is an easier time, a happier time, and a brighter future for all of us.
Ibrahim Mogra, thank you very much.